I'm using my brush, I'm painting sort of around the shapes of the ornaments, but I'm using the side of it, I'm getting some rough edged work. It's this kind of brushwork actually is great for simulating things like subtle folds in cloth, for instance, like we're doing here, or other objects that have a little bit of textural quality to them. So I get a little bit of that color on. You can see it's very light, which is exactly the way I want it. A little bit more. And now I'm going to go right in along here. Quick strokes, and just let that mark serve as the spot that shows where it's a little bit darker because the cloth comes over and folds down into that what is essentially a little bit of a gully down in there. And I'm painting right in. Remember that we're trying to make it lighter up in here and then gradually sort of darker as we come around here, because there are those gradations of color that are happening on that ornament where it's reflecting different objects in the room, of course, but it's also reflecting different qualities of light in the room around it. We haven't gotten any color on this ornament here, but I'm actually going to put some of this in. I'm going to let it touch on that side because this is also a reflective object, and it would be reflecting some of the color of that ornament as well. So I'm putting some of that in, and I'm going to continue to get some of that color on this ornament. Now I'm going to start with that, and again I'm going to work around this edge first and then bring it around here, and I'm going to mingle that in. I'm going to let those colors just mix and mingle together. Looks like there's a little bit of a highlight right in here. I'm going to paint around that. Now again, I've got a spot of light right there and right there. I'm going to paint around those. In other words, try to pick up those highlights that I really painted over, again purposely, blue. So that would be the phthalo violet right there. My window is here. I've got one window there, a window here. So I'm getting this nice fluid wash on that I can continue to work back into, which is really the objective for me. Let all the colors sort of blend right here. My window's down here. I've got a spot of highlight there and there. I'm going to let those stay. Now it intersects with this other ornament right in here. I'm going to kind of paint around that edge for the moment. Really darken this edge. There we go. Color that's up here on the very top of this ornament is kind of this red color. And again, there's some highlights there. I'm going to try to make sure I leave some little white spots of paper that are showing through, because that will help me show those highlights. I don't really see any back up in here. I am trying to get that color on nice and fluid because I'm going to mingle some stuff back in there. I'm going to mingle some other colors in there. Near the top, where the hook connects, I'm going to get that in. Neutralizes it, makes it look a little bit more like it's reflecting, again, something dark in the room. Don't know what, but something out there. Not going to mix it with anything. It's actually almost green. It's still a turquoise, but it's more green than turquoise, and I'm going to get that in. And again, nice and fluid, and I'm letting things mix and mingle together. Mixture a little bit more green. I don't want yellow showing up separately, though. It looks to be a little bit darker over here. And again, there's some light spots, and where I've got white paper that I've left, whether it's exactly where there happens to be a highlight or not, I'm leaving them. Because those white spots we can use, almost certainly use them to show those highlights later in the finished parts of the painting. It's another stripe that's actually not shiny. Permanent rose down here, kind of on the bulb part of it. Couple little spots of reflection, highlights. I'm going to try to leave those. right down under here. So I mingle in some of my darker, some of that violet color. I'm going to mingle that in right there. Again, some highlights. So I'm going to leave some little bit of white paper showing. A little dark spot right there I just noticed on the photo reference. So I'm going to get that in. And I'm going to continue it down here because there's actually gradation. It's pretty much dark over here and then it gets lighter as it works in this direction. And I'm going to try to get that in. And they get lighter, which is really easy in watercolor. Just add some water. Get that lighter. It connects to a shadow that's here and shadow that's here and washes that we already have on there. And where we touch, they mix and mingle. And again, it's our instinct, isn't it, to say, oh, no, 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 I didn't want that. But it really is okay. By connecting those shapes together, it actually adds unity to the painting. Now I'm going to lighten the shadows quite a bit lighter around here. And I'm going to do that simply by adding water, letting that gray color, that neutralized color I've got in there for the shadow, just letting it mix and mingle, flow together. And those are marked with pencil lines on our painting. So I know I can get them in because I've got them marked. There's a little spot of light there. I'm going to leave that. I don't know if it's actually in the photo, but I like it as a highlight, so I'm going to leave it. It's a very important aspect, really, of getting reflections. There are almost always dark objects reflected in something that's this shiny, and they're very important to have those in because they show off those other mid-value colors that are in the rest of that reflection. Some kind of vertical looking marks there and fairly bright turquoise. Now I'm going to touch that darker area. I'm going to let that mix and mingle, and red from the permanent rose, the top of that ornament, it's being reflected in there. And then down here there's a good bit of it because it's reflecting that part. Now it's a little bit darker than this, and we'll correct that. Got it into that red, but let me do this. Change it a little bit and pull out the edge of the ornament right there. So I'm going to get that in as well. Just as in this ornament, these darks are really important for showing off the lighter areas and the highlight areas. It looks like there's some dark here, like it's reflecting something kind of dark, and actually that is down under here as well. I'll get that in. Up under here to show some of this darker area in that green part of, it's actually reflected right there, reflected color from down in here. I'll get some of that up in there. Some that comes around here. I've got some white spots for highlight. I'm going to paint around those. Leave those in there. Again, they're very important. And try to get some of that right in here. It looks to me like there's some reflection going on, really interesting reflection that's going to help the overall look of our subject. And you can see where there's some lines that are straight and they just mark where there's serrations really in that object. And get, again, a little bit of color change, a little bit of variety in certain areas that will help us, again, show these reflections. And as I come around, again, I'm just going to add water to it. Let it lighten up. A little bit more darker value in there. And I'm not sure it's being reflected, but it was really dark, and it's hitting there, here, And I see a little bit of it actually down in here, right along there, and then actually right here, a little spot of it. Funny, I don't know exactly what was being reflected, but it actually does help overall the look of the shiny objects that we're trying to paint. I do think we could get a little bit more dark color right up in here on this reflection. It helps us see that reflection of that ornament a little bit better. And then there's actually an area that's kind of gold right in here. I'm going to try to get that in as well, right there. While I'm doing this, I'm going to look at spots on the photo where it looks like I could get some of these highlights. It looks like down in here maybe some highlights. I'm actually going to get some right in there, believe it or not. I kind of see it in the photo. See a little spot. I kind of left it there, but I'll put a little spot there. I'm going to put a spot there. A little bit of highlight up in here to help us see the shape of that ornament. So I'm going to do that. And actually I do see a little of that on the photo reference. So I'm going to get that in. But other than that, I think we're done. I think it came out really nice. Nice little effect. We did use a little bit of gouache at the end, but we didn't have to use that much. It actually, those light areas really stayed light. Even if you've got a little color on the paper, once you get some darker values around it, it really starts to light it up and make it look right.